Yes, sound. Yes, okay. Checking. I'm paranoid now about the sound not working. So your attitude is a combination of your thoughts, behaviors, and emotions, right? We talked about last time. Okay. So you form. I need another word for thoughts that we have been talking about. Something that has to do with memory. Something that has to do with your cognition. So what else should I add in with cognition? Okay, so when someone has this counter-attitudinal behavior, what happens? Okay, so okay, so wait, let's go back and let's define cognition first so that we can then start looking at what counter-attitudinal behavior is. What is cognition again? Hey, look, the thing advances the slide when you push it in there, but when it's not in there, okay, so I'm gonna write this in black so you can see it. So what is some examples of cognitive behavior? That's okay. So. Emotion's not a cognitive behavior. Emotions are. What's writing? So you're. You see why cognitive science is such crap? Because I ask you, what is cognition? You're like, emotions. No. Emotions are emotions. How do I know an emotion's an emotion? Oh, you can't define it phenomenologically. You can't define it because it exists. So I know it's real. Why? Because I believe it exists. No, but can I measure an emotion? Yes. Can I measure your face? Yes. I could totally tell she was disgusted. But you can see it if the person is. There's these things called microexpressions. Microexpressions are if somebody says something disgusting, you're trying to hide it, your face still goes, ew. Or like when I read her text yesterday that she crashed on the stairs and really hurt her knee, I got a oh no expression on her face. Asia's got a job interview today. Okay, so I'm like, yay, go, and I'm making happy faces. I'm not very good at hiding my face. Whatever I'm feeling, I share it on my face. Sorry. Okay, so emotions are something that you can see. We can train them. They're behaviors. But what's a cognition? Yeah, but a thought is not something that we can measure, but we can measure some things about your cognition. So go back to writing. Writing's a really good example. Writing is a cognitive behavior. Okay, so that's what we're going to do for a little assessment. We're going to play a little game show in here. And we're going to have you, I'm going to put up a prompt up here and you have to respond to a prompt up on the screen. Okay? So, how do I know you understand the concept? I'm just going to write it down. Language is a cognitive behavior. Because what is language? The behavior of thoughts. Then otherwise you're just producing a word salad? Word salad is a bunch of nonsense words strung together. So you have to think, because in order for you to talk, what do you have to do? So one of my students a couple years ago spoke German, and he was very proud of his German speaking ability. And so he said something to somebody in class in German, and I responded back to him in English. I took a bunch of German in college. I can't speak it to save my life, but I can understand it. Yeah. Well, but the way that, oh boy, critical thinking then is what? Okay, so problem solving. Is problem solving cognitive behavior? Yeah. So to me, critical thinking is problem solving, not language. So wait, so critical thinking. So thinking must be then, in order for you to produce language, you do have to think about what you want to say. So when I put up a prompt up there, you don't just immediately have the answer. What do you have to do? You can't just say think. You can't. That's like my physio class saying the answer is the brain. You have to think of a this is tricky stuff. Cognitive psychology is really difficult. You have to have, language is one of the really most interesting ways, I think, to study cognitive psych. The study of language is a really important study in cognitive psychology because the words that you choose, some lady on the radio said this morning, listening to one of the boom boom stations on the way to school with the kids, and she goes, how do you know that some car didn't crash in there? She said in there. It went crashing in, and then in there. So went crashing in there. It was a very terrible English sentence, but did she communicate what she was thinking very quickly? Yeah. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like, a lot of you people use the word search it up. A lot of old people go, search for it or look it up. You don't search it up, but what happened to our language? No, it's you change language because you change the way that you communicate. By changing, but does it make sense when you search something up for your young people mind? Yeah. It's a much easier way to say that I'm going to look up something on a search engine. I'm going to search it up. Yeah, as opposed to what my generation would just say, I'd Google it. Even if you're using Siri, are you still Googling it? Yeah, which means internet search. Like Xerox. That's a company that made PCs a long time ago. Yeah, chapstick. We use Carmex because we're Vermont. We don't say chapstick, we say Carmex. Funny. You have any Carmex? Sure, here's a chapstick. Here, thanks. You're dangerous. Okay, but so the language that you choose, does it reflect your thought process? Yes. And so what is language? It's really weird. It's packets of behavior that represent your thoughts. And you package your behavior and you give it to somebody. And what do they have to do? Unpackage it and read your thoughts. It's like, I would love to be a writer until you actually try to write something. It's really hard to write something well. I love science fiction. It was really fun. I have some great, awesome dreams that would be really cool end-of-the-world sci-fi movies. But how come I can't write them down? It's hard to put words to all of the visual sensations that you have and all the mental sensations that you have. And when you try to put them down in words, you realize how slow language is compared to how fast your thoughts are. It's like, could you understand everything that's in your memory? At once? Why not? It's just too much. But what's interesting is that we don't remember everything. Why is it saying mute? What does that actually say? How is it? Where does it want to win? Okay. It's going to win. Still says it. Okay. But what is it? Why don't we remember everything all the time? It's not useful. It doesn't help our behavior at all. When do you remember stuff? When you need to remember things. That's why it's fun, like in California, like we have a ton of umbrellas. But do you ever notice where our umbrellas are? No, until it's raining and then there's a scramble in our house for umbrellas. My daughter refuses to carry an umbrella because it's, quote, social suicide, unquote, to carry an umbrella. And she's wearing this giant fleecy puppy sweatshirt. She looks just like our dog today. And what happens to a fluffy dog in the rain? Dreadlocks. Matted. So my daughter's going to go to school looking like a wet, fluffy dog, is what the moral of the story is. But she goes, well, my app said it wasn't going to start raining until 9. It's like downpouring right at drop-off to this morning at school. I'm like, you're right. Listen to your app. Hold your phone over your head. It'll help you stay dry. You want an umbrella? Because I put a bunch in the car. My neighbor kids took the umbrella. My daughter's like, no, I'm going to go to school damp. Spike. She probably took the umbrella from the boys, but that's okay. So now, but the idea of concepts and the idea of memory is that a concept forms a group of ideas. Concepts form groups of ideas. What do attitudes do? Let's go back. Why would a Nazi children's book make you have disgust reactions to Jews? So you group all people of that similar characteristic as one thing. As soon as you start grouping people together, what happens to their individuality? Well, if you don't like a group of people, you don't have to know any of them, because do you know all of them? See how we spin that? If you stereotype a group, if you conceptualize a group and attach conditioned stimuli to that concept, it forms attitude. You stop thinking. You stop using problem solving. You use significantly less cognition. As opposed to referring to the person as a particular person, you refer to them by a general trait. It was really funny. We had a student, or it's a teacher. She's an Israeli Jew, and her parents are still in Israel, but she came to college here and said, I don't want to live over there. I want to live in California. And her husband is very Orthodox. She's a lot less Orthodox. But she had a student, a Muslim student, said, I'm not supposed to like you, but you're really nice, and brought her cookies. And it was interesting because Galit, if anybody has her for history, she's fabulous. She cries at everything. She starts crying. She goes, why can't you like me? She goes, I've been always taught that you guys are awful people growing up. Awful people. And Galit doesn't hide who she is, but at the same time, so why is this person shocked that Galit's a really good person? Growing up in California, what happens to a lot of cultural identification? We ruin you. You have a culture, yeah, 2 generations in, what happens? You're overweight. You're American. Okay? And it's hard to, why is it hard to maintain very strong cultural identification in California? Especially, what does everybody see? Well, like just in our neighborhood alone, we have such a multicultural neighborhood that everybody kind of ends up the same in our neighborhood. Because there's not any strong cultural, there is a strong cultural. A lot of the folks in our neighborhood are liberals. So who moves there and who feels comfortable there? Liberals. And we don't have a lot of conservative people that live in our neighborhood because they feel uncomfortable. Somebody, the guy with the Trump flag going down the street, and everybody else goes, doesn't feel comfortable. Where is the Trump flag likely to end up? Alpine, Lakeside, Santee. We made the joke that El Cajon used to be biker bar, rough and tumble. What is El Cajon now? we call it Middle East County now. Well, but the population has shifted. But because the population has shifted, guess what El Cajon has? diversity. It never used to have diversity. Okay? And it's really interesting, but it also has better restaurants than it ever used to. You want good Middle Eastern food, where do you go? El Cajon. Okay, if you want good Vietnamese food, where do you go? Fernie Mesa. And and if you go down Convoy, there's tons of really good restaurants along there. Yeah, well, also the dim sum places, and we usually go to Sushi Deli because it's cheap, but it's not the best sushi, but but what's funny is that why do these little towns, why do these people group together? Why is there a little Saigon, which is actually North Park? But, well, why do people like to hang out with other people of the same culture? So that's how humans are is not a good answer yet. But it is. It's a natural thing because your cognition and how you feel comfortable is how you think. A lot of has to do with your group. If you have people in a group that share a similar attitude, people in a group that have a similar attitude, you have to think. Not much. It's always funny when I go to Alpine, whatever sort of magnifier. Whatever. Okay, I'm going to get out of this stupid thing and go to Chrome because Chrome works so much better. Okay. I'll ask Cortina. So is there something that I hit on the keyboard that makes it so that the keys don't work? I think I know what it is. Stand by. I think this stupid little ninja button, if I hit it twice, it changes the keyboard into a surfing utility as opposed to a... Well, hold on. Not time for experimentation. That's what... When I'm not doing other things that I need to be doing, that's what I do. Okay. So, why do humans form groups? Kinda. Good. Okay, so I'm gonna put this. So how am I going to define what thoughts are? Sorry. Science. So, well, people tend to hang out with people who speak the same language. So why does language affect the way that you think? Yes, we discussed that for half an hour. Now, so if you think the same way as other people and you speak the same language, is it easier? Yes, you don't have to think about what you're going to say. Like students who take my class that are English language learners, like we discussed this at the beginning, it's harder to take a class where you're translating everything as you go. Because you're using two languages using twice as much cognitive energy, which uses twice as much ATP, which you're exhausted afterwards. I remember in German, we had to watch a newscast. This is part of my final exam for conversational German. Watch a newscast and transcribe what the newscasters were saying. Luckily, why is a newscast a really good thing to watch if you're learning English or whatever language? They use very formal and they use very low vocabulary language. And they don't, an academic, even as moronic as I am, I still use a higher vocabulary level than a lot of the newscasters. And so the news is a really great thing to watch if you're learning a language. Movies? Not so much. They're much more fun to watch, but the movies use crazy language and street language that sometimes doesn't translate very well. Okay, so what's another way that we can think about what your cognition is? So you have an emotional response, you have an attitude towards something. It changes your behavior in a particular situation. Our attitudes make you think more or think less. So less critical thinking. So I'm just going to write it up here because I have to pee. Easy choice. So thinking is choice. How do you make a choice? You think about it. Some people use behavioral processes to make choice. Some people use attitudes to make choice. But when you're in a group, it's easier to make a choice. What do most people do? Yeah. It's a really fun experiment, and let's see if you can figure out the variables here. They had a group of kids go into an ice cream parlor, okay? Like a Baskin-Robbins, lots and lots of different flavors to choose from, okay? Then they had one or two kids who are kind of the leaders of the group. The one or two kids who are the leaders of the group in one experiment went first and ordered chocolate chip ice cream, okay? Both of them ordered the same chocolate chip ice cream. In the second experiment, different group of kids, different day, same ice cream parlor. They came in and they ordered vanilla ice cream, not chocolate chip. Lots and lots of choices. So what they measured the behavioral choice of all the other kids in the group. Okay? So how could I decide if the leaders changed the group's behavior? What would I measure? So, but that's not a measurement, that's the behavior. So what's a measurement of that behavior? There you go. The number of children who chose chocolate chip. So if they look at the number of kids who choose chocolate chip in the second group, that would be the number of kids that tend to choose chocolate chip. But what if the leaders choose chocolate chip first? What should happen if the group is influenced by the leaders? The higher number of children choosing chocolate chip in the first group compared to the second group. It's a very silly little experiment. Only costs a couple $100 to run, and you'd make a bunch of happy, flighty, squishy kids. Okay, so how could we find out if the group is conforming with each other? How could we test this experiment again? How can we make this experiment again to find out what effect the group has? Yeah. That's the second. So the second part of the experiment, the control, they didn't allow the leaders to go first. The leaders went afterwards. This is actually really simple. So has a lot to do with the size of the group. If you bring 5 kids in, they're not as likely to follow the leaders. You bring 20 kids in, what happens? Everybody orders chocolate chip, and there's a run on chocolate chip. Why, with a larger group, do you have less individuality? Who is it so wise in the ways of science? Okay, so it comes back down to this stupid normal distribution. An individual, a single person, if you're a stats person, I'm going to write degrees of freedom up here, and then it's funny that you think about it in this way, but if you don't know what degrees of freedom are in stats, ignore it. Okay, so I just thought of it, and it's funny. Okay, if you have a single person, what's going to affect their behavioral choice? What they want. Boo, creepy foot doctor. Could be association from the past, but still, it's what they want. 2 people. But pretty much what they want. But as soon as the group gets bigger, what you want changes. What you think you want changes. Now, are there always going to be those individuals that are standing out of the group going, no, I want pistachio? Or that one kid always wants that rainbow cotton candy flavored? Ah, nasty, whatever it is. But it's like neon purple and pink and orange, and like somebody's like, I need to have that. Why? I don't know. Ugh, so nasty. My son's that kid. He's like, I want the rainbow with bubble gum. Dude, you're gonna get sick. Yeah. Okay. But if one person says chocolate chip, the second person says chocolate chip, the third person says chocolate chip, all of a sudden the person behind them has a conflict. I really like vanilla, but it becomes harder to choose something different than the group. The larger the group, the more momentum the group has. The larger the group, the more momentum it has. The more momentum the group has, the harder it is to be an individual. So I'm going to write this word up here. Sorry, I thought I had more space. It's called de-individualization. So what does being an individual mean? Having your own identity, your own self. So when you're de-individualized, you are, I want to say the word consumed. You're absorbed into the group. If the group has a strong enough attitude, do you act as the group? So I'm going to write this group think. If a group has a strong attitude, the group will start to think as an organism, not as an individual. This is really crazy because you'd think, because we have a mind, we have a perspective, that we're all on the same page, right? You know, I'm myself, man. I'm mindful. I'm aware. You get into a large group, and immediately yourself becomes less. Why? Yeah. Okay, so my cup of tea is really kicking this morning, so I have to go to the bathroom. We'll take a break. If you remind me to drink a cup of tea, then we can take a break earlier in class. Plus, I was really dehydrated on Sunday for some reason. I woke up like a full-on calf cramp. And I also was snoring really bad. I'm wondering if my snoring is related to hydration. Mm-hmm. It's actually just measurement time. So I'm going to make sure I drink this whole thing of water today and see if I snore tonight. It's no fair that my wife lifts weights because she's strong. Wake up! Okay, so think about 10 minutes. That's not it. So, it's Rogan, it's Goofy. How come sometimes I know that?
When people ask me a question that I know instantly,
That's because it's a motor program, and so it's much easier to choose a piece of information that you know right off the bat.
it just requires a very, very little energy.
Very little bit of energy to activate. So that's why it's like when my physiological psych course, the first half of the course hasn't changed since they figured it out back in the 70s. And so I can go through the first half of the course without ever looking at my notes, without doing anything, but the second half of the class is all stuff that's new. And I have copious notes and all sorts of stuff. All right. So, hello, welcome back. Hello. You guys aren't listening. It's fine. When I'm wearing pants, okay, it's okay. It's usually the bad dream you get, no one's paying attention. Not wearing pants. Okay, so thank you. Shush. Okay. Well, still going. Okay. That's like I had one of my students last year that would just kept talking. And then she just kept getting quieter and quieter. I'm like, no. It doesn't mean talk quieter. It means stop talking. Anyway, I don't take it very personally. So if you form a group, if you want to form a group, what do you need to do? Yeah, so the first thing you have to do is support. I know, but it looks really cool on this. Okay. Support who? Support ideas. So you form a group based on concepts. You form a group based on ideas. Because groups are formed by common attitude. If someone has an attitude, it makes it so you don't have to think. If you don't have to think, it's easy to conform. The easier it is to conform to the group, the less individual there is, the easier it is for you to form a group. We were talking about this after class, right after class, last class, but what's a cult? A cult is a group of individuals that will bring somebody in and take their person away. De-individualize. Okay. And this is really important. How do you know your group becomes a cult? Okay, so we'll have to do this in a slightly different way so that you can, let's say we want to form a cult. Okay? So we can form the Weinert Psychology cult if you want. So what we do is, in order to get people to join your cult, what do you have to look for? I'm going to write this up here. We look for a cognitive deficit. So what would a cognitive deficit, how could we define what a cognitive deficit actually is? Well, wait, no, attitude can cause cognitive deficit. A lack of thinking. Okay, lack of education can cause cognitive deficit. Trump appeals a lot to people who have low education. The National Rifleman Association referred to Congress as a bunch of overeducated liberals. And I'm like, overeducated? That's bad? That's an insult? And well, I mean, again, I'm speaking from the choir, so I can't say, but what does it mean to be overeducated? You think too much. And my brain's like, and this is a problem because, well, if you're forming a group of radicals, you don't want people to think. You want people to do. To not have critical thinking, but to run with attitude. Because critical thinking is you examine evidence and you make a hypothesis, you test your hypothesis, and you examine evidence again. And when you actually sit back and look at a lot of conspiracy theories, if as soon as you start trying to examine the evidence, what happens? They fall apart immediately. But why do people like conspiracy theories? It's rewarding. They feel the excitement. They feel that joy of finding these deep, dark, secret conspiracies. And it's really awesome when every so often, like, a bunch of people say, oh, the government's listening to your phone calls, man. You better be careful what you say. And then everybody's like, no one's listening. And then all of a sudden, 10 years ago, the CIA goes, yeah, we were listening. And there's like 3-4 schizophrenics that are paranoid. Go, see, I knew it, man. And everybody went, uh-oh. I had a student had delusions of stealth helicopters. We're following him. He had Tourette's syndrome and took medicine to stop his Tourette's. Do they make stealth helicopters? Anybody been to the air show? Oh, come on, redneck up a bit. You got to go to the air show. There's a helicopter hovering over the field. It's big. It's 100 feet away. You can't hear it. You only hear it when it turns. Whoa. And you hear this noise. What's the noise? No, it's the air coming down below the helicopter. It has 2 blades that rotate the opposite direction and cancel each other's noise out. The only time you hear it when it gets out of phase when it turns. It's at the air show. Anybody seen an F-22 jet? And have you seen one in real life fly? They're psychotic. So a jet comes flying in really fast over the runway, slows down to an almost complete stop, turns in midair, and then flies off this way again. You're looking at it, and it's some kid holding a rocket, like watching an Elon Musk rocket land. It's like... But the rocket actually does that. And when you see it, you're like, that's not real. Is it real? Yeah, it's called force vector thrusting, but that's irrelevant. It's the same technology, by the way, that made the F-22 stop in midair and fly the other direction that makes the rocket land. But what's crazy about it is that you look for someone who has these very strange and very obscure beliefs, and what do you do for them? You feed into it. If you want to form a cult, you find these people that have this cognitive deficit. I'm going to write this, less thought. Sadly, who gets drawn into cults the most? Young people. Because they don't think. 14, 15-year-olds do not think. 8 and 9-year-olds don't think. Well, that's why middle school kids are such pain in the asses. They don't think. They will shred somebody on social media and cause a lot of internet trolls. It's not the Russian government, it's middle school kids. And they will say stuff that is so harsh and so abusive and so nasty because they can't understand bigger concepts beyond their immediate experience. Most of them. I mean, some are mindful and wise, but most of them are just living in their pre-adolescent stage, which is a wonderful place to be academically because your brain is open to every new idea that comes in. But your brain is also open to every new idea that comes in. Okay, so you look for someone with a cognitive deficit. A lot of child predators do the same thing. You look for a kid that is lonely. You look for a kid that is shy. You look for a kid that is not a part of a group, whose parents don't pay that much attention to them. And so what do you do then? Yeah. Give information and feelings that fill that deficit. You identify the deficit and then you fill it. Little gentleman, Charles Manson. Charles Manson formed a cult. The way he did it, he was very young, he was attractive, he was very charismatic, and he would go to bars and look for women that weren't very attractive and woo them. Buy them lots of drinks, give them lots of presents, give them lots of attention, call them every day. They make the girls fall completely in love with him. And then do what? Information? So by completely wooing them and swiping them off their feet, then he would do the same thing the horse whisperer does. Push him away. Hey, I'm really mad at you for this trivial incident. You need to leave. The person who is completely wooed by Charles Manson does what? Comes back. The women that came back to him, he knew he had developed the attitudinal behavior that he was better than them. And as soon as he had that, he would convince them to do more and more and more against their normal attitude, but why would they keep doing it? By filling the deficit with his ideas, their cognitive dissonance, remember cognitive dissonance is where they either double down or run away, but they don't have the resistance to run away because he gave them the attitude that they were missing. He gave them the attention that they were seeking. A lot of, like, we did a march for, what's it called? It's called 21 Steps. It's an organization that helps kids that have been abducted into slavery pretty much get out. And it's basically, the motto is leave footprints. Make your track heard. We did a march around El Cajon last semester. And in Parkway Plaza, a lot of young girls were abducted. Because? Crowds. And the larger the crowd, what happens to a self? It goes away. You have less self in a crowd. And what they do is they prey on people. They'll come up and start talking to someone. Hey, do you know what time it is? Or hey, wow, it's a really pretty dress. Oh, did you just buy this at such a... Just start chitter-chatting with somebody. If the person doesn't look them in the eye and looks shy, but doesn't walk away, they're a good candidate to be abducted. But if you teach a young lady to look people in the eye, talk to people, but maintain self, you're less likely to be abducted. It's why are they looking for the shy or the timid or the afraid? The cognitive deficit. It's not that they're not being abducted by grabbing and throwing into the back of a van. They're being abducted by wooing, Charles Manson style, and being brought into this particular life. You did? You turned out okay. You're fine. Puppies and bands. Yeah, the object is to find somebody who's quiet and trusting. Hey, can I borrow your car? Just kidding. No. And it's like, it's one of those things where you find this, a lot of people that get abducted, it's not abducted by strangers, it's abducted by people that they know. And it's because what they do is this cognitive deficit means that they're not thinking, therefore they're open to this attitudinal behavior. And yeah, you're not thinking. At 5, okay, you got to learn stranger danger. And the idea is you give information and you fill this void. And by filling this void, give the person a positive feeling, then you can slowly change the way that person is. The larger the group, what happens? Yeah, the less individual. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be a cult. My daughter was, because of her dyslexia, we were reading some research about hemisphericity, and so one of the theories of trying to help people with dyslexia is teach them to use both hemispheres of the brain better, or more conjuncture. So, fine. So we went to this ophthalmologist who trains a lot of athletes for hand-eye coordination. And his theory is that if you train people with better left and right hand-eye coordination, your hemispheres work better together. Truth or false? It's about 50-50 science. But, so my daughter went and did this therapy for quite a while, and I had a bunch of red flags when we went in there because of the rhetoric. The lady that was showing us around and giving us the spiel about how to do the training and everything else, she goes, you know, I was skeptical too, but I came in here for therapy and I got so much better, I decided I'd start working here. So as soon as you hear that, what does that mean? No. It's not lies. She truly believes it. But why does she work there? It's her experience, it's her testimonial, it's her belief. Therefore, she goes, and the doctor himself isn't the one who came up with this stuff, isn't the one selling it. It's the people he's convinced that it works are the ones that are selling it. Are they doing a really good job? Yes, the people that still the Cutco knives. Yeah, how'd that go? Not good. But the people that actually become successful at it, why are they successful at it? Because they really believe that these are awesome products, and they actually get so excited to get to go sell it, they're really genuinely happy to sell you a knife. Did you get yourself? Nice. My friend's daughter wanted to go and do this, and she's like, she studied to be a cook, and she loves cooking and everything else. And she's like, yeah, bring out your best knife. And she's trying to show us this. And I have my favorite knife that we use because I like to cook a lot. She goes, look how much better this one is. And I'm like, yeah, but that's like $400. This one I got in 1987 at a garage sale. No, it's a Chicago wooden-handled one. And we put it in the dishwasher. And she goes, well, how often do you have to sharpen it? I go, well, I sharpen it pretty much every time I use it because I have one of those sticks and I know how to sharpen a knife. And I just sharpen it when I clean it with the rag, and then I use it, and it's epic. Well, it won't last as long. I got it at a garage sale in the 80s. I think it'll do okay. I'll be okay to buy a second set of these at some point. She was all upset that we didn't buy a knife for her because was she generally upset that we didn't like the product? Yes. That's why she's a good salesperson. If she wasn't upset that she didn't make the commission, if she wasn't based it on the reward, she was upset that we didn't respect the product. But that's forming the proper cult. Amway. Amway's fading in our world. Anybody know what Amway was? Amazon killed Amway. You buy products from this industrial warehouse and like these big products called Amway. And then what you do is you invite your friends over and try these products. They're like soaps and all sorts of household products. And then your friends go out and try to sell them to their friends. And it's called a pyramid scheme. That the more people you have that you have tertiary or subordinately recruited, you get paychecks. But the problem is in a small community, what happens by the time you get to the second level? Everybody's already have it. So there's no way to actually move up the chain in a smaller community. You can move up the chain in a large community like New York City, however. Other people are doing the same thing, and everybody that you know is going to the person that the person originally knows, and the pyramid schemes always crash and burn by the second or third level. It just dilutes too much, it never actually works. Sounds great on paper, but that's where the cult comes in, because you take someone who's not thinking very much, you tell them how they're going to feel, and then you make a very large group, and it seems like a really good idea. Timeshares are the same way. They sell you a timeshare and convince you it's the best thing ever. My parents love theirs, but they were convinced to buy like 2 other ones that they don't really need. That's why my father-in-law bought a condo in the mountains as opposed to a timeshare, because when can we use it? Whenever we want. He had money that he sold a house, bought it outright. There's my timeshare. Yeah. Yeah, and if you ever go to one of those presentations, they show you tons of pictures and everything else of all the happy people that are doing their timeshare and traveling all over the world in their fancy timeshares and everything else. And it is very fun. My wife and I went to Palm Springs for a weekend. They paid for us to go to Palm Springs. We had to sit through a thing. So we went and had like 10 shots of tequila before we went in there. It's like, hey, Dan. And the guy's like, we're never going to sign anything. And so he's like trying to convince us, and we're like, yeah. And then they brought the guy in the red suit in, like the closer guy, trying to really sell it to us. And we're like, your red suit's red. But anyway, so high time. The idea of forming a cult is, well, can you do this for good as far as evil? Yes. Anytime at San Diego State, if you're sitting by yourself for more than 5 or 6 minutes, guess what happens? You get approached by someone. Now, the being approached by someone doesn't necessarily mean the person's out for no good. And the reason is because if you're by yourself on a campus, you are vulnerable. You're by yourself. Now, we were talking about this before. Sometimes is it nice to have alone quiet time? Yes. Okay, and sometimes it's nice to put on your earpods and just take the world away. Just let me go away and let me be my little self-thinking time for a minute. But what they do is every time I would sit by myself, because I like to sit outside, I don't like to sit inside, and I would sit and study. Every day, someone would come up to me and say, "Hey, would you like to come to a Bible study, a Bible group?" Why were these people proselytizing, coming out? No, they're not trying to form their own little cults. They're looking for lost souls. And part of their religion is to look for lost souls. Look for people that don't have direction and purpose. And they're looking for people with their perception as a cognitive deficit, with their perceived cognitive deficit that they have. Don't assume the negative. They don't come and whack you with the Bible, is what she's thinking. She's like, no, they look for people that, what does it mean with a lost soul? They don't have God or direction or purpose or meaning in their life. Therefore, you're obviously sitting alone because you don't have direction, purpose. I just realized I didn't get that clip. Okay. They don't have direction, meaning, or purpose in your life. And for some people who follow particular religions, what gives you your meaning, direction, and purpose in life? Your religion. And that's so, for their perspective, they're doing things to try and help people. They're not trying to get you into a cult to sell Amway to strangers at the border, stealing kids. You got to work it all in. Okay. So, the purpose and the idea of, and the word cult is a little bit harsh, but I can change the word cult into something called into a group. And does it do the same thing? And so once you form a group, well, how do you feel in that group? Well, you feel safe. Okay, and then there's something called collective self-esteem. I'm sorry. That's horrible. If you're taking physio, I would say the relative contrast ratio between the red and the black was not sufficient, so I needed to increase the relative contrast ratio by decreasing the outside light. Chapter 6. Okay. The blue is still not contrasting very well. It's actually almost irritating to look at. So if I color over the purple with yellow, it turns beigey. That's not very good at all. Red, blue. Nope, I'll try this blue. Yeah, whatever. Okay. Sorry, I'm distracted by playing with the pen. Okay, so what is self-esteem? Trust. Okay, it's self-trust. So if a group has collective self-esteem, or we call it group esteem, what happens? Everybody's safe, and are you allowed to be well, no. You're not allowed to be you in your group. You're allowed to be your attitude in your group. This is what we're getting into, after we take this little assessment tomorrow, we're going to start talking a lot about racism. Racism is rearing its ugly head in our country significantly more than it has in the last 10 or 15 years. Are humans generally racist? Yes, sorry. Humans tend to have this thing, they have implicit biases. Implicit biases mean that you react differently to people of different ethnicities. What stops this implicit bias? It's not cognitive thinking because it happens as you are seeing somebody. So you can't think as, you think after. Well, it's actually with them. Immediately label them as them, those people. But what happens is the more you interact with people who are different than you, what happens? Our word respect means you learn about them, you're still throwing them under the bus. Yeah. Okay, so when you think about what makes people different versus what makes people the same. Yeah, well, it's the way they dress, the way they smell, the way they eat. Everything is different about different cultures. However, when you focus on how people are similar versus how people are different, what happens? There's way more similarities and differences. So this is one of the things that I wanted to do today. We're going to talk about this and talk about it with this. All right. Okay. What's the difference between gender and sex? So there's creepy comments coming in all the time here, so I got to think about this. Who are you feeling? Oh, no, that's not the right way to say it. Yeah, so, okay, so I'm going to write this up here. Okay, a role, we use the word role in psych. We don't use social constructs in psych because a role, psychology focuses on how the individual is impacted. Sociology is how the group is impacted, how society works. We're interested in how the person works. So you have a role. I wrote the word role over there under schema. Okay? So a schema is a set way of thinking. So what are characteristic behaviors of that the role of man is supposed to do, or male? Masculine. Well, how do you define masculine? That's kind of silly, because that's saying a masculine person is supposed to ask masculinely. Okay, so hunting. Priding ourselves on going Valentine's shopping in one afternoon, in one short period of time. Whoosh, whoosh, down. Okay. It's very easy for my family. Okay. Aggressive. What else? Yeah. Well, it's funny. What kind of emotion? Because guys are supposed to be what kind of emotion? Angry. So what kind of emotions? Yeah. I don't like watching sensitive movies because I'm real sensitive. I was taking prednisone when I hurt my back. We were watching, what was that movie? Wait for it. No, not my enemy. Never watching that. No, God! I sat in the other room and rocked in a small ball when we were watching that. I was actually watching truck racing videos on my. Let's see. The hell movie was it? With Parental Guidance. Is that the one with the grandparents say, yeah, and the kid recites the. When he recites the final play of the World Series, I can't believe what I just saw, and he's saying it. I'm like bawling watching that. My kids are looking at me like, Dad, like, what? You didn't cry when you got married. You didn't cry when your parents died. You didn't cry when we were born, but you're crying at the stupid movie. But it's so bad. What does prednisone do? Yes, it does. But aside from that, what does it do? It makes you puffy. As soon as you stop taking it, the weight goes away, so you'll be okay. So it makes you emotional. It raises that threshold of emotion. So anything that would typically disgust you, 10 times more disgusting. Anytime that would make you sad, 10 times sadder. So prednisone stimulates a steroid hormone that stimulates all of your emotions to become more. So that's why, when if someone's bitchy and then they take prednisone, very, very bitchy. Sorry, science term there. Okay, moving on. So they're less emotional, and I'm going to put sensitive. I need to put the less not here. Sorry. Okay, what else does it mean? What other roles do man supposed to have? Yeah. Provider. Now are there any other roles that you wanted that you expect for the masculine or man gender? Protection, good. We're supposed to be strong. We're supposed to be hard. The more buff the man, the more manly the man, the more squishy the man, the less the man. What about your jaw? You're supposed, okay, so all of a sudden, these are a Budweiser commercial. Which I'll play the Budweiser commercial for you in a few minutes, but they play this role. Do men play this role? Yeah, a lot of Mexican men will play this role. Some of the most sensitive guys that I know are Mexican men. However, why is it important to be tough? Why is it important to be hardworking and aggressive and strong provider? Machismo. That is considered really important. But who's always bawling at the wedding? The dad!
Chaldeans too.
Oh, and Chaldeans too, and every guy technically. So you can't, but what's interesting, in some cultures, the roles are much more defined. In my Western European academic liberal culture, guess what? We can carry a purse, we can skip, we don't freaking care. Because what's happening in a lot of culture now? Changing. Gender roles are changing, and that males that are seen as, we call this actually called the hypermale. Yes, that's right. At least my buddy still has one that when he goes road biking, he still wears it because he carries the stuff in it. It's from the 1990 San Diego State Track and Field Classic fanny pack that they gave away as prizes. Oh yeah, yeah. I think this is from a social person that I talked to. So I guess I think, but I stole it from his ideas. I can't remember his name though. Israel, or don't know. But I do remember his name. Hypermales are not useful in our society right now. The hypermale is not useful in our society right now. Right, and so part of the theory why the hypermale is no longer useful is that in our society, is it beneficial to be big and strong and aggressive? Being smart is actually a much better thing in our environment, especially in the more information age-based environments, where, especially like in Europe and in England, in France, they're 10 years ahead of us as far as gender identification. But what's interesting is that the hypermale is not important in our society. Back in the 1960s and 1970s, all the companies were run by these hypermales. All the Donald Trump people in the world ran everything. And what was the woman's job? To take care of the kids. You get your MRS degree. That was the joke that a lot of women went to college in the 20s and 30s to find a suitable spouse to marry up. To marry someone who's higher rank than you socially, so that's how you improve your social rank. You're making the yuck face again, which is great. Sorry, you wear your face very well. But in the 90s, in the 80s and 90s, all of a sudden a lot of women went back to work. And when the women went back to work, women started having lives and a career, and women said, I don't want to have a baby right now. I want to finish graduate school so I can get a career. And all of a sudden, a bunch of the hyper males are not useful. And nowadays, do you need to be big and strong? No, if you follow what the ultimate male looked like back in the 70s and 80s, it was this really big, strong, Arnold Schwarzenegger, our governor, kind of looking person. But now, the hypermale isn't that. most of the people that are considered the ultimate males right now are the CrossFitty folks. And they're not giant and buff. What are they? They're lean. And they're not, it's like in American Ninja Warrior, if you look at a lot of the popular sports, like The Rock is a kind of a weird guy, but if you look at the TV show that he's sponsoring coming up soon, I keep getting ads for Instagram, I must watch it. Okay, the Titan races? Yeah, but Titan is a company that makes weightlifting equipment. So the Spartan races, Titan races, but they're all lean and fit. They're not the hyper males. And if you look at the top women and the top men, they're equally as fit. And that's what's really cool. That's why I like American Ninja Warrior, because a lot of times, whatever her name is, this Graf, Jessie Graf? Not Steffi Graf, that's a tennis player. I keep getting that confused. But same last name, but she beats a lot of the guys. Because the competition is based on overall athleticism, not on just brute strength. Yeah. Hey, it's those nerds and geeks are the ones that own the world right now. Elon Musk, guarantee, has not power cleaned over 200 pounds. He's running our world right now. Amazon guy. Probably didn't date in high school. All the hyper males are like trying to conquest as many stupid females as they can when they're young because they have this burgeoning testosterone. The poor non-hyper males are like, okay. Low testosterone, low aggressiveness, no drive. However, low aggressiveness, low drive also gives you higher intelligence. Because you don't spend all your energy on the lowland gorilla. Yeah. Well, this is a really tricky topic because we start mixing sociology and psychology. So let's hold off that because let's look at what is feminine. Let's look at the role for feminine. Oops. Didn't mean to do that. Okay, so what are some of the roles for feminine then? Again, so I'm going to draw this up here because this is the way that psychology runs. Here would be the feminine, here would be the masculine, okay? And so just for the reality, just so we can keep this in check, where are most people? Somewhere in between masculine and feminine. My body shape is not very masculine. I've got a big waistal area, which may be a very good discus thrower, okay? But my shoulders and my hips are not that much different, sadly. My legs, my leg is bigger around than my son. Like his belt, I can't belt around my leg. So my son he's just kind of a stick. But what would you expect for a more masculine shape? What shape should a man have? The triangle shape. The more the hyper male, and this is the more testosterone a person has when they're young, the narrower the waist, the skinnier the legs, and the bigger the shoulders. That's that hyper male shape. The shape. And what happens when a male, there's a bunch of really fun research on this. They had guys walking on a treadmill measuring their gait. One group had a guy with a clipboard writing notes down. Another one had a really attractive girl writing notes down. What happened to the guy's walk? Increase. Behavioral measures. Come on. No. Slower. So as they're walking, their arms swayed less, and they step out more as they walk. Yeah. What time is it? Okay, so, and this might hurt. I gotta stretch first. Okay, so what did the women do when the attractive guy was? Swayed their hips more and walked slower. So as a normally walking versus you kind of put your weight on the outside of your heel and shimmy, just in case you have to practice that. If you're an old TV show fan, there's a TV show, what was it? One Day at a Time. And it's an old TV show, but there's a line in it where he goes, oh, your Aunt Francine, she's not allowed to come anywhere because she's the one who taught you that walk that got you kicked out of church. Wow, flashbacks. Okay, so feminine shape should be this. My shape is pretty much not feminine shaped, but not hypermasculine shaped either. I have that potato kind of somewhere in the middle. And if you actually look at most people, what are most people? Somewhere in the middle of that, not quite like the potato quite shape. A lot of shot putters and discus throwers have this shape where they're square. Because in order to be a really good shot putter, a really good discus thrower, you have to have strong legs. And so the hyper male doesn't necessarily work. But if you look at a lot of the receivers on football, that do football, catch the ball, Hank, those guys, what shape do they have? Do you need to be very aggressive to catch the football? Yes. A lot of the wrestlers are big arms, big shoulders, tiny little waist, tiny little legs. Hyper male. Useful? For wrestling, yes. But useful in the corporate world. No, because then what ends up happening is the hyper males, guess what happens to them? They die young. What do they die of? Heart attack, heart disease. What do the hyper females die of? Breast cancer. Just having big boobs doesn't increase your risk of breast cancer. Alcoholism, no, that's the woohoo girl. Those are different. Every group needs a woohoo girl. Those are the extroverts. So you're in a group and you have one friend that's woohoo! Woohoo girl, look at that. They're the extroverts. Anyway, no, they die from obesity. Well, because if you have lots and lots of curves, when is the ideal for your gender? Well, it's funny, as males get older, we get better. As females get older, they get less useful. Sorry. So when's the ideal female? This is really horribly, but this is based on a lot of research. Yeah, 18 to 25 is the ideal female, and 40 to 60 is the ideal male, which is stupid because all the 18 to 25-year-old males are way better than us. However, what do we have? We don't really. But for males, what affects a male's attractiveness more is status than looks. What affects a female's... Okay, so this was back in the 1970s when this was mostly true. However, in our society now, what happens? Well, surgery are people in the middle trying to do what? Trying to exemplify the edges. Because when you exemplify the edges, I made the joke about the relative contrast ratio of ability to see the red when you couldn't see the red before. Well, if someone's not being noticed for being feminine, we throw a huge set of boobs on them, all of a sudden what happens? The femininity is noticed immediately. And either positive or negative attention, but if you're trying to play a role, if you're trying to play a particular feminine role, you exemplify the feminine aspects of it. We always make the joke of, at the beginning of the semester, everybody's trying to play the role of who they think they are. At the end of the semester, everybody's wearing sweats trying to pass. Why? Who you are is trying to pass your classes, not trying to put on the show. Because when you put on the show, you're acting out a script, you're acting out a schema. So, males are supposed to be hunters and gatherers, but that's not useful in our society today. What's more useful in our society? Yeah, intelligence. Being smart. What else? Our society still has problems with self-control. Social media really has problems with self-control on people. But that's not a feminine trait, is it? Now, I'm trying to think of these females. We talked about the hyper males. So being intelligent is definitely something. Caring, good. I'm going to write communication up here. Who talks more, men or women? Women. Women communicate better than men. Men don't communicate well. Ugh. Yeah, and they're more sensitive. What else? I'm going to write the word soft. Yeah. My friend has a t-shirt that says, I like women because they're squishy. Like, okay. So the sensitive, soft, stay at home. These are characteristics of the role that we put on women. But does this become offensive to some women? Yes, because in our society, the hyper feminine behavior, personality, is considered offensive. Are you supposed to be subordinate? I'm going to write this up here and get yelled at in a minute. Do you want to be told what to do? Or do you want someone to hold the door open for you? No wonder we're confused. No, but what happens is that it's funny that my wife is a very progressive. She runs a school. She's a very strong person. But then she gets mad at me when I don't open the car door for her. You run a school, but why do I still treat her, quote, like a lady, unquote? What does that mean? If she has boobs? They fed the kids, they worked. But the idea is that because we have our more traditional gender roles. I am in charge of fixing crap around the house. Does she know how to fix crap? She doesn't want to know how to fix crap. Who takes out the trash? Me or my son, because the trash is gross. Oh, did we take out the trash before we left? Oh no, I don't think we did. I hope my wife did. Fluffy's gonna have some more fun. She just got groomed too. Oh no. Okay, all right. So hopefully Grandpa will notice. But so the gender roles still exist, but they exist. These gender roles exist because in our family we established those. I spoil my wife and I spoil my children because that's kind of my job. But I'm at the same time as I'm a lot of the nurturing. I do a lot of the cooking. I do a lot of the cleaning in the house. I don't clean well, but that's not important. But I play a good mom role around the house a lot because my wife is way busier than I am. And so because of our situation, we characterize the both. But if I'm wearing a yellow tie-dye t-shirt, I know this is awful. When I went to work, we work out from 5 to 6 in the morning. It's just us, my wife and I in the gym, so who cares? I'm wearing a yellow tie-dye t-shirt, red shorts, white socks, and black shoes. And my wife goes, "Are you seriously wearing that?" Like, it was on the top. It's what I just grabbed off the top. I didn't pay attention to what I'm not trying to dress to impress everybody. But when she goes to the gym, even though it's in a freaking junkyard right now, in nowhere, what is she wearing? Matchy stuff. Her Lululemon tights and her stupid shirt and a sweatshirt and then the lower shirt over the sweatshirt because it's cold. Seriously. And I'm like, it's cold, so I'll just work out harder and warm up. I like my yellow tie-dyed shirt. It was really cool until we washed it and then it faded and turned all kind of pastel. It's just nasty, kind of a puke yellow color with green on it. Classy. Anyway, so the whole point of this is that, do people want roles? Sometimes. Why sometimes? But it's not, do you identify with your role? Yeah. Yes, you do. I like being the dad role. I like being the guy with the minivan role. Like I laugh at the hyper males that I will drive a minivan. Sure. Why not? It's mom car. What's your reasoning? They get good gas mileage, they carry lots of stuff, and they're useful. Oh, I'm not driving a minivan. Why? It's a mom car. But is it easier to be if you play the role? Yeah. What are you going to say? So, but how, okay, so if you're trying to navigate the whole Harvey Weinstein business, guys have been grabbing girls' butts for a long time, okay? And Harvey Weinstein a little bit more, but just gets creepy. Well, should guys be treating women that way? No. In France, it was considered being French if you were harassed on the street. So if you walk down the street or you walk down the street, people go, woohoo! Shake it, baby. And in French, so it sounds nicer, but still. And that was normal in Cuba. The people look at you and go, hey, hey. And then so the girl goes, hey, hey, and keeps walking. Just like it's kind of a social game. And it's just a natural thing that people were doing until what happened? As gender roles are switching, a lot of these young women are no longer just liking the attention from the male. They're like, hey, I'm a self over here, not just my tushy. And so immediately they start getting upset by this, and then the guys get aggressive because they say, no, you're supposed to be flirty when I catcall you. And it's weird where, as society's changing, it's really kind of fun to see a lot of these top guys crumble, because were they being really creepy? Yeah. But back in the old days, it was called the casting couch. That was a big thing that this Parisian actress was saying. It's like, oh, the casting couch. If you wanted a job, you would go sleep with one of the producers on the couch or engage in some sort of sexual activity to get your part in the thing, and that's how you became popular. You sleep with the top male so that you become popular. It's very primate, by the way. How does a young female work her way up in the tribe of pygmy chimps? She doesn't fight them, she woos them. Oh, fine, so these are fights. No. The young males, what do they try and do? They try to fight the alpha and oftentimes get killed. Which male is the most successful in the primate world? The most aggressive? It's savage, whatever. I'm just picturing the guy swinging the cross at stuff. The only time I ever see music videos, we went bowling on Sunday afternoon, and that's an Aztec Bowl, and they play music videos. And so, what's with the swords and the blood and that one? I don't understand that one. There's some song with the why you got a 12-car garage when you got 6 cars. Is it? Wow, the world full circle. But that stupid song is that he's slicing people apart with swords. Why? Is that what the whole point is? I don't understand this savage business. Anyway, annoying old white cultured guy. Okay, I'm really not cultured. I'm a redneck, but that's not important. So you can do research to find that our females still slightly female and our males still slightly male. Yeah, we did this experiment whenever I teach human sexuality. We call the sexual attitude survey. And there are certain characteristics that really do define males and certain characteristics that really do define females. But most of us are in the center. What does media do? It only shows the hyper male, hyper female. And what's interesting, and this is one of the big things that it also only shows white people. This was a big thing about 10 years ago. Every single show on TV was about a white family, white group. No other ethnicities were represented in sitcoms and TV shows. And when they were not lead characters, they were sidekicks. Tonto, yeah. Yeah, this is the Soch group. If you're real good conspiracy theories, it's because the Jewish people. I don't know. I learned that. I'm like, I never knew this. I should really get into the conspiracy world. If you're a Borat fan, that's even funnier. But hey, everybody! It's so offensive on so many levels. But We'll talk about a script. So if you're not afraid of who Borat is, Sacha Baron Cohen is a British comedian, and his basic premise is he will get into character. He will develop a character and then just get into character and walk around and do stuff. And they follow him around filming him. And he will not break character until the end of the day. So when they were filming Borat, he went into somebody's house and was like, comes out and says, "I need to use this bathroom badly." And he goes to and he comes out wearing their towel and their robe and using your conditioner is empty. And he's like, and the lady called the cops. And the cops arrested him. And he's in jail going, "No, I am Borat." And he has his passport and it's Sacha Baron Cohen. And he goes, "No, I am from Kazakhstan." And he would not shut up until the day ended. Then he goes, "Oh yeah, I'm Sacha Baron Cohen." And it was like, why did he stay in script and character the whole time? That's what made it funny, and that's what made it real. He was Borat the entire day. And then he was a very homosexual Australian guy, Bruno. That one, he almost got killed. He started a chant at an Alabama football game and almost caused a riot that almost got him beaten to death. Because you spark the wrong crowd at the wrong attitude, and what happens? The larger the crowd, the more likely the attitude is to shift. And if you have homophobic tendencies and you're with 30,000 of your other friends who have homophobic tendencies, what happens? They lose themselves and they're more likely to cause aggressive behavior. Yeah. Oh, was that one? Is it okay? I didn't see that one. So a lot of really good actors will do that. They actually put themselves into the person. Leonardo DiCaprio became obsessive compulsive after doing The Aviator. He actually developed the disorder he was mimicking in The Aviator. Yeah, he was in treatment for quite a while to try to get out of his obsessive compulsive behavior that he was. He got so immersed into the character. George Clooney did this too. Jim Carrey. Well, Jim Carrey's. We'll talk about him later in the semester. Jim Carrey has a type of personality disorder. He has it's a disorder called dysthymic depression. So because of his chronic depression, he can put himself into another face and be that other face and be perfectly normal and fine. The Truman Show is what Jim Carrey said in an interview was his life. Everything was going fine, except everything seemed scripted and nothing seemed real. And he'd find little glimpses of reality, and they were dark and they were scary. And it was just everybody was watching him live this false life. And that's how he feels in his life. It's called dysthymic depression. Anyway, we'll talk about that today. But when you have roles, it's easy to know how to behave. When you sit in a society that has very specific roles, you know exactly the right way to behave. But as society's rules change, or you shift societies, what happens? You get something called and you should have talked a lot about this in sociology. Because this role conflict can be caused by you have two roles, two competing roles that you have to do. You have to be a parent. We talked about this already. You have to be a parent. You have to be a student. I have to be a teacher, but at the same time as I have to be a dad. And it's hard. My wife's role is really difficult because she's a public figure at her school. And so can she be herself at her school? No, she has to be much more of a public show at her school. So when she gets home, she's tired. She's exhausted because what is she doing all day? She's playing a role. I mean, her role, she really believes what she's doing. It's just she can't just say, well, F you, stupid parents, your kid's an asshole. Wouldn't that be so much easier if you could? Oh yeah, you're right. It'd be so much easier. I mean, the parents, oh, little Johnny, you've had a rough day at school. I'm sorry. He punched 3 kids in the face and spit on me twice. Yeah, but the parents go, oh, you've had a rough day. Let's go get some ice cream. And that's why too creepy, but you'd have the body cameras on all the teachers. Could then just like, this is your kid going, whoa! Well, the other kid made him do it. Because why do the parents not see what their kids can do? Because the kids know how to play the game. The kids know which behaviors to play at what time, what they can get away with. The kids are behavioral monsters just like the rest of us. And this is where bullying and all that other stuff comes in, is that when you start bullying, what you start doing is you start getting these other groups involved with attacking some other kid. And which kid always gets attacked? The kid with the cognitive deficit. And that's why in the best anti-bullying campaigns, you don't actually talk to the bullies. What do you talk to? Talk to all the kids. You have to talk to all the kids when you can see that. We did an anti-bullying campaign at my wife's school back when she was a teacher with our psychology club. And we went in and we did a couple of skits with the psych club. It was a really active year. And they did some skits about one kid making fun of another kid's Pokemon backpack. And so then afterwards we broke the kids into classes and we talked to them about why was this person being made fun of? Why did the other people make fun of them for wearing the Pokemon backpack? Why did everybody else jump in on the show? And they were saying, oh, that happens on the playground all the time. But why do you, and then so we had them do metacognition about why did they do that. Metacognition means thinking about your thinking. And yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's called Toes on the Line. Okay, so why is this so important for a high school kid to do? What high school is that at? Oh, awesome. Yeah, that's really good that they do that. I do that. That's an activity that we do in my normal semester classes. I have the students, I draw a big circle. On the inside, I write this. This is what we're talking about after the assessment Wednesday and on Thursday and Friday this week. There's an idea of what you define yourself as. And on the outside of the circle this is brilliant. So we do the same thing. And so we make everybody stand in the center of a circle who fill in characteristic here. And then everybody on the outside is looking at them. And the people on the inside have to look at each other and then turn around and look at everybody else in the group. And that's the same thing as Toes on the Line. That was done, what was the name? Freedom Riders is where that comes from. Anybody seen the Freedom Riders? Yeah, we actually went and met the real people at USD. They had a talk at USD. There's a documentary that they made themselves that they're going to put out. And the PBS agreed to finish filming it, and they have all the live footage from when they actually were doing it. It's really cool. It's really powerful stuff. And if I can find that, I think the link to the documentary is online somewhere. If I can find it, I'll post it for you. That'd be good for you to watch this weekend. But what's interesting is a lot of people, if you feel like you are the only one how do you feel compared to everybody else? Outcast. You are here and everybody's looking at you. But if there's like 6 of you in the middle, and all of a sudden you look around and it's like, oh, we're all the same. Or like one of the big ones that they said is, I know someone in my personal family or close to me who has been killed, and everybody steps forward in the line in the movie. And everybody looks around and goes, oh, I thought it was just me. Because as soon as you realize it's not just you, yourself doesn't become an I, it becomes a we. Which is stupid. I hate that kind of nonsense, but it works. Because as soon as we have something, what do you have? Group validity or group self-esteem. As soon as your group has self-esteem, well, that's why gangs work so well. Because you have other people that you can trust and you can rely on. And they make you suffer to get in the gang. Why do you have to suffer to get in the gang? Just like the Marines, you want the people that are going to stand back up and walk back toward the group after being beaten up or suffering whatever indignity that you're having being suffered. Hazing in fraternities, it's all the same thing. Suffer, suffer, suffer. Hey, welcome back to the group if you come back. I think that's the statistics for psych majors. You really want to be a psych major, you have to pass statistics. I hate stats. It doesn't matter. Suffer through it the entire time. You finish, that was the worst class of my life. I hate it. And you go, I love psychology. And then you keep moving forward. No one likes stats. I love stats. Why can't people like stats? Right. So, okay, so in Sweden, a group of families got together. Sweden's a socialist country. So they decided, let's raise our kids without he, she, my, no gender pronouns, no gender-specific clothing, no gender-specific toys, and just see how these kids grow up. And it turns out the little girls tended to be more feminine, little boys tended to be more masculine, but they were much more accepting of were less likely to play specific roles. However, can you raise a child in isolation? No, in Sweden it's relatively easy because there's not a lot of diversity in Sweden. We have a couple of friends that are Swedish, and it's like one of her friends came over from Sweden over Christmas break. They all look the same. Blonde hair, long blonde hair, straight hair, slightly mongoloid features, small tiny noses, high cheekbones. They all look the same. They all sound the same because who the hell wants to live in Sweden? Those people. Anyway, there's a researcher named Dr. Money back in the 1970s. He was a pediatrician, and while circumcising a set of twin boys, the boy's pee-pee got infected after the circumcision, and they had to have it removed. He got sepsis. So the boy had no penis. So the doctor said, hey, we can construct a vestigial vagina out of the tissue, castrate the person, remove the testicles, and you can just raise this one as a girl and raise this one as a boy, versus a boy without a penis. And so the doctor convinced the mom that this was a good idea. The doctor set up a study to say, hey, we've got the experiment. Identical genes, raise one as a girl, raise one as a boy. Let's see what is a bigger effect. Grimacing your teeth because you know at the end of where this is going. But identical genes, identical household. Let's only measure the effect of socialization on these kids. Well, long story short, the little girl felt completely out of place her entire life, wanted to play football, wanted to play soccer. The parents dressed her in dresses, always felt uncomfortable, wanted to wear pants, never felt right. When you were 16 years old, 17 years old, found out about what happened, immediately stopped wearing dresses, immediately cut his hair, and started acting mannish, ended up committing suicide by the time he was 21. And the other kid was perfectly fine. So is there a biological component to being male or female? Yeah, but my friend's son, Shelby, was born female, and he is now transitioning to male. He always felt off. He's also on the spectrum of autism. He also was Asperger's, but it's a very mild case of autism. He's always been into hunting and fishing and always been into a lot of tomboy behaviors. And because he identifies more masculine, as an autistic person, can he be gender neutral? No, he can't be non-binary. So one of my favorite things that's come around is this. There's a large group of folks that prefer to be called non-binary genders. In other words, are you male or female? They say, no, I'm non-binary, which means I am so-and-so. We had a guest speaker named David come to class. And David, my sexuality class, David is non-binary. He has boy parts, and he goes, I don't want to cut them off. I don't want boobs. Okay, I enjoy my boy parts. but he goes, I prefer to dress and act female. He's very flamboyant. For this class, he showed up wearing jeans and a kind of a shirt like this because he goes, dressing like a girl in the morning is too hard. So he shows up, and does he fit the male persona? Very feminine male. Sees me, goes, oh, hi, Steve, gives you a big hug. And it's like very feminine, but at the same time, it's like if you see him walk by, you say, dude. But when you hear him talk, you go, hey, dude. But then if you see him when he's dressed in his getup, as he calls his gay girl clothes, you'll get there. Because he likes to keep spinning what people think is gender. He works for the Center, which is the Center LGBTQIA, some other letters added in afterwards. We call it the Center. But he works there doing talks about gender, and he works there teaching people about PrEP, a way to prevent HIV spreading. And when he came to this class, he goes, I keep saying he, but I should just say when David came, it's hard. Grew up in a binary world, really hard. I owe like $100 to Shelby's gender jar for misidentifying genders once he switched. Anyway, so when David was lurking around campus, people would never notice that he's different. But he's talking to an extremely conservative crowd. What would David wear? He would go full-on drag queen. Big eyelashes, big hair, tons of makeup. But if he's talking to a college class, he shows up as, depending what time of day it is, depending his mood. Sometimes he acts more masculine, sometimes he acts more feminine, and he can play that role because he's non-binary. Gender fluid, yeah. And I always say this, I'm very non-binary. I don't like to play the strong masculine role all the time. I don't think it's a good thing for our world. And I take care of my children, and I'm a good mom in that respect. But I say I'm a good dad because mom doesn't mean that you have to be someone who is, I didn't birth any babies, so technically I'm not a mom. I'm a good dad, yeah. Mm-hmm. Nope. Sometimes I'm getting a little heavy. I got to lose some weight, but no. So technically that's why I had a big discussion with a social professor about this, because I said I'm a really good mom. Because you're not a mom, you don't give birth, you don't lactate. Good point. So is there a very prescribed difference between a mom and a dad? Yeah, moms have the ability to feed their babies. Very impressive. But to study the anatomy and physiology of how milk ducts work, it's crazy. Whatever you eat, within like 5 or 6 minutes, is digested and it's in your breast milk. So if you eat salmon, okay, this is an experiment from my wife when she was breastfeeding. She ate salmon. We eat salmon a lot. She ate salmon and then fed the baby on one side, would pump the other side so I could feed the baby on the next feeding with the other side. So we put the milk on the counter to cool off before we put it in the fridge, and here was oil. Here was the fat from the milk, and here was the fluid from the milk. Salmon oil was at the top. What color is salmon oil? Orange. There was an orange oil above the milk fat, and then there's like the liquidy fluid, then there's the water part of the milk. No. Is salmon oil bad for you? No. Therefore, not bad for the baby. Whatever the mom eats, so if the mom eats broccoli, what does the breast milk smell like? Broccoli, what happens to the baby? Gets gas. Because it's eating broccoli. No, it's not eating the chunks of broccoli, but it's eating the nutrients in the broccoli in craziness. It's amazing, yeah. Absolutely. Well, it's important for women not to drink at all, but alcohol is bad for you. It's a toxin. But it's a bigger toxin to babies. So I studied fetal alcohol syndrome for years in college. So I'm a very anti-alcohol drinking while pregnant or even near kids kind of thing. It's fun in college to be drunk at the grocery store. Not cool when you're a parent drunk at the grocery store. Just perspective change, it's just, you think about it. But, so yeah, so if you drink alcohol, what's in this fluid? Alcohol. And it takes the same length of time for your body to digest the alcohol as it does to get out of the system. So if a woman does drink while she's nursing, the baby's getting the same dose of alcohol the mom's getting. But the proper thing to do if you want to go out and have some wine with your friends is you pump and dump. You pump ahead of time before you drink and put it in the fridge, and then you pump it out afterwards, and then wait till you're done and just feed the baby with it. So, but anyway, so it's interesting when you start looking at these. Is there a difference between gender and sex? Yeah, so when mom and dad, I think, are not more gender roles, but are biological. One's got a uterus, the other ones don't. And I think that what about that guy that got pregnant a couple years ago? Remember that? He's actually a transgender female, still has a uterus. So was it really a guy that got pregnant? No, it was a transgender person who had a baby. But the person was masculine, but they still have a uterus, so they're able to have a baby. Unless you're Arnold Schwarzenegger and you have Danny DeVito. It's a bad movie, but he was our governor, so it's funny. Yeah. So, okay, brace yourself on this one. Ready? Shelby is attracted to women. Did she go from being a lesbian to heterosexual? Oh, no. Shelby is my friend's son who transitioned. He's had a mastectomy, and next summer he's having the junk removed and repackaged to get. He's losing his vagina and getting a penis. No, that's not David. David doesn't want to lose his penis. David likes his penis. Shelby does not like his penis. Shelby wants a penis but doesn't like his vagina. I don't know. It's complicated. Okay? This is why it's so hard. Life was so easy in a non-binary way. Hunt, stick, rock, clonk, got. Nice. But the nice thing is that as our society grows, what happens with transgender individuals now? They're much more accepted. And it's like, even with homosexuality in a lot of our culture, like my friend's, she's a clinical psychologist, Jackie, her son Gabe. Jackie is from Brazil. And in Brazil, there's very strong gender lines. And women are very curvy and very shaky, and the guys are very masculine and very tough. And so Jackie's asking her son, hey, Gabe, is there any girls you like at school this year? Is there any girl you kind of got your eye on? And Gabe looks at mom and goes, Mom, I haven't decided if I'm gay or straight yet. Just leave me alone. And Jackie's like, whoa. Well, it's just because in his adolescent mind is being gay an acceptable alternative to being straight. Yeah, there's no stigma, there's no negative association with it. It's just, I haven't decided who I'm attracted to yet, so leave me alone, Mom. My kids just go, no. But then a bunch of little 6th grade girls think my son is the shiznick. They found his phone number in one of the other boys' planners, so he keeps getting texts. Hi. Block, block, block. I'm like, dude, save those for about 3 years from now. Just saying. He goes, why? But just wait till you grow some testosterone, then you'll start to realize, because a lot of the girls that really like him are really cute. What's going to happen in a few years? Puberty, and he's going to go, I understand why Dad said keep those phone numbers. Haley, Hope, what's the other one? There's one other one that really thinks he's like the greatest thing ever. He's cute. But yeah, probably Ashley. That's another common name for the. But when you look at him, that's with his fresh haircut. Fresh haircut. Anyway. Yo. Did you wear a shave? Oh. Well, no, I would say that if you go to Parkway, you're going to find a different culture than if you go to Fashion. Yeah, yeah. Parkway is still East County. East County is still conservative. There's a lot more there's strong gender lines in East County. If you were to walk through Hillcrest, nobody even people would comment the fact you really need to shave. Your beard is unkempt. Not the fact that you're wearing a dress, but just you got to work on that. So then it's fine. Yeah, someone would comment the fact, those shoes do not go with that. It's like, in other words, commenting on the ensemble rather than the fact that you're wearing a dress. And that's what's interesting is that in California we get a little brainwashed. And the reason we get brainwashed is because so many things are normal here. Like, especially at my college little view, people from all over the world are completely welcome as seen as the same students here. But is that the same way it is outside of the college? Well, you forget that. And when you see people screaming, "Go home" at the border, I'm like, people here still do that? And it's like, it blows my mind a little bit. We had a good friend of mine got beat up pretty bad. He was out in front of his house, like, doing yard work, and some people rolled by and started harassing him, and he shouted back at them, and they jumped out of the truck and beat him up because they yelled at him that he needs to go back home, he needs to be a legal immigrant. It's his house, and he's doing yard work. He happens to be Hispanic. And so what were they doing? What were they assuming? That he was just some undocumented worker that was doing yard work. They're like, "This is my house." And that's why did he shout back at them? Look, it's his house. Who are you yelling at me in front of my house? I'm not going to take that. And it's like, no one would question me at all doing yard work in front of my house. And that's where we start getting into the idea of racism and how we're going to start talking about that. On Wednesday, we're going to take what we just did today, and I'm going to put up a question on the board. I'm going to give everybody a little piece of paper. You're going to write an answer down on the piece of paper, and then you're going to compare your answer to your group. And then you're going to come up with a single answer for your group. Okay, and then we're going to put them up on the board. Okay, so it's going to be kind of competitive. They're much more open-ended questions. Why not have multiple choice? Well, I need to know where you are at understanding these concepts. Notice that we have a lot of concepts, not concrete things. You notice that? In the brain, we can label all the parts. This is this, this is this. Behaviorism, we can label the parts. This is this, this is this. Then we start talking about something like gender. What is it? Well, it's a continuum of concept. Okay, go ahead.